Hey, everybody, welcome to the Resilient Edge, where we will explore resilience in the areas of public safety, security, crisis intervention, mental health, and the veteran community. I'll be your host, Dave Weiner, and we're going to be bringing you expert insights, real world stories, and practical strategies to stay prepared in an unpredictable world. Let's go ahead and sharpen our edge together. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into women in security with our very first and special guest, Anna Redmond, founder and CEO of Braav. Braav is a security technology company that is serving many different organizations out there, from property management companies all the way to Fortune 500. Anna, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks so much, Dave. I am excited to be here.
We're definitely happy to have you. And we're going to be doing a lot of different episodes on many, many different topics. And a lot of them are related to security and mental health and all these different things. But obviously today we're leaning into the security.
Sure. So I've had a number of career transitions over the
Mhm.
course of the last some odd years, as my kids will say, happy 29th birthday yet again. So we'll leave the number out of there. But I started my career in venture on the investment side. I worked at a couple different hedge funds. Definitely knew that I really wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Before Braav, I built a totally different business alongside a co-founder. We had an agency that was focused on content creation, specifically thought leadership. And we worked with a lot of Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 C-suite executives and did that quite successfully for a number of years. Parts of the business wound down, parts we transitioned out. And it was really around 2020 that I started thinking, like, hey, what's next? And my previous business had been fascinating, very cerebral. And I felt like I wanted something that touched people's lives a little bit more viscerally and intimately. And during that same time period, it's sort of like sometimes the universe shows you something. And I felt like nationally, a lot of people felt unsafe. I talked to numerous folks in the corporate space that were running into physical security issues and really struggling to find a solution that worked for them, even to understand what the universe of potential solutions could be. I talked to a number of people I knew personally who had been mugged or assaulted or had issues just sort of like out and about in LA. And I kept coming back to the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, right, of needs. The bottom is security and safety. And if you don't have that, you can't build all that other stuff on top of it. The self-actualization, the lifetime fulfillment. And so it was with quite tremendous trepidation, really, that I began to explore this space. Because honestly, I think I bought into the outsider perspective that you just see through the media. And I walked in thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's going to sort of eye roll me out of the room. I never served. I was not, former law enforcement. I was, frankly, I think probably as far away from that as you could get and had had very little contact with those worlds. But in a nutshell, all the early conversations that I had were just so enlightening, and the people were so kind and so willing to give me the time of day to hear me out, to brainstorm with me, to encourage me. And I walked out of so many meetings with people saying, hey, I like your ideas. I want to be helpful. Like, here's my number. Call me for anything. It was really refreshing, to be honest with you.
I love that. And I know you have a personal story too as to why you got into this. Would you want to share a little bit about that? Because I think that's also indicative of the security world, if you
It's
will.
so funny. I actually have a couple. And I think this is the thing that's so interesting is that once you start to dig, a lot of people have multiple touch points where they're like, there was that time that I felt really unsafe. And there was that time that I really needed advice and just didn't know where to find someone trustworthy. One of my closest friends was going through a super ugly divorce and she felt super unsafe. And she reached out to me just to share. And I wanted to so badly to be there for her. And as she talked me through the situation, there were a number of moments where just like alarm bells for me were going off. And I was like, man, what if I wanted to send someone to help her? Like, can I just like look up a security company online? Could I talk to someone? And I started that process. And it was so confusing and so complicated. And I had this thought of like, man, I could probably get a photographer or a masseuse or a nail technician to her house in minutes because there are a bunch of apps and there's Glam Squad for beauty blowouts and all of this stuff. But it was so convoluted to even figure out who the right security professional would be and how to get them there. And that was really one of the drivers too. I was like, man, it feels like there's a product market mismatch in this space. How do you go, how do we build something that starts to fix it?
No, that's great. And unfortunately, in the security industry, and as you know, my background, I've been doing this for about a minute and a half. And, one of the things that has plagued the security industry for many, many years is, well, we've always done it this way. And there hasn't been an overt amount of innovation in terms of the actual security space. Yeah, there's been a lot of tech and there's been a lot of that kind of stuff, but the mindset of innovation hasn't really been prevalent yet. It seems that when you have engaged folks in the space, it seems that most folks kind of leaned into, yeah, we're sort of ripe for innovation. So what do you got? Right?
Absolutely. And I heard that over and over again. And look, I think the gratifying thing is so much of that is changing now, right? Between AI and other innovators and us and what we're doing, I anticipate the next 5 years will be highly transformative. And it's such a cool place to be in.
So, Anna, what's interesting is, you are a woman in a male-dominated career field or a career or industry. What are your thoughts around how that's going? How have you been perceived? And, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. The interesting thing is, I get asked that a lot, especially by people not in the industry. And my answer always surprises them. It's been lovely, honestly. I feel like the folks that, I mean, maybe I've just been fortunate, but to me, I can't help but feel it's representative of the space. A lot of men, definitely a few women here and there, but most people I have found are just really lovely human beings. There's this sense of like greater vision and greater value set that I think drives this space that's unique to security. You don't find it in whatever, CPG or tech. And I think that undercurrent of values has just really served the industry well. And I've tried to come in really with a very healthy dose of respect, both for the individuals that I'm working with and for the fact that I am new to the space. And I will often say, like, look, I'm not going to tell you how to do the security job because the truth is I don't know. And I also have the benefit of being able to look at what we do from a very client-centric perspective, which I think is very healthy and very helpful because it's not something a lot of the clients have had. And I think it is sometimes hard to shift your mindset from someone who's used to doing the protecting and knowing what that's like to trying to step into the shoes of an individual or a group that feels that they need protection and that they're experiencing that insecurity and uncertainty and fear, really. And so I actually think the fact that I can look at it from that perspective is kind of helpful. And, like I met recently with one of our executive protection partners who's done an exceptional job for us. And he and I were brainstorming ways to bring on more clients. And he wanted to know how I share our pitch and how I share my background. I was really blunt. I was like, I tell the clients, look, trust me because I hire exceptional people, not because you think I know how to keep you safe, because I will just like run and hide behind you. I'm not the person to go and do that. But I think that empowers me to really pick the best partners that not only, I have amazing advisors who can guide me on all of the security aspects that I trust deeply, who have had, uh, you know, extremely deep experience. And then I can layer customer service into it, which I do think sometimes is missing, not for lack of wanting to provide it, but I think just from maybe not having the exact skill set and understanding. Um, so yeah, I actually think I've told people this, like, just as a person, I've had people be more abrasive and self-centered and rude in other industries that are not as male dominated. Like there are a lot of people who are very full of themselves in tech. So this space, I think, has felt very refreshing.
So do you think that, and you kind of alluded to it, but I want to put a finer point on it. So do you think the fact that you don't have a background in security was actually more helpful to you in honing the customer service piece?
For sure, especially the way that I positioned it, right?
Mhm.
I knew what my strengths were, and I definitely knew what my knowledge gaps were. So, I've shared with you, I went and I had fun and I took a bunch of classes and I know just enough about like a kind of minutia of security to kind of follow along in a conversation, but you would never want to put me in trying to actually make decisions on that
Sure.
front. But I definitely knew that my strength was understanding the customer perspective. And so that's the assignment that I gave myself as I built the business.
Well,
And then I brought in people to backstop me in all the areas where I felt that I was weak.
wonderful. That's great. Because you sort of switched gears and transitioned sort of mid-career, what advice would you give to our next generation of female security leaders that either maybe are looking at this as a different career path or have maybe started in this career and kind of looking to work their way up into the executive space? What type of advice would you give them?
Ooh, yeah, gosh. I think I would say, and maybe this isn't just for women, just for anyone. I think if you walk into conversations with respect and humility,
Mhm.
and bring your best, like your best ideas, and do it earnestly and not out of a sense of ego. I think you very quickly will find a lot of really good people that want to do the same thing. And if you find people that aren't on the same wavelength, then you kind of weed them out, or that's not a trajectory where you want to go. I have been honestly welcomed as a woman in this space by so many men that I've talked to. It's frankly taken me by surprise. I think they've appreciated having me as the interface with clientele. And I think they just, sometimes a fresh voice just feels nice. And I've certainly tried my hardest not to come in with this perspective of, I was on the investment side, I went to Harvard, I know everything. Like the truth is, I don't, I know very little. And so I just like, I try to be honest about that with myself and with the folks that I work with. And hopefully it's paying off. Hopefully no one's out there saying, oh, Anna's just such a jerk. Well, we'll see. I guess there's always someone that doesn't like you, but in this space, I think earnestness and hard work actually goes a long way.
Well, I think also in just my own view, and we've had a lot of conversations like offline, and we've worked on a number of projects together and things like that. The one thing that I've always really liked about you is you ask very interesting questions. And I think it's mostly because, like you say, you're coming at things from a very respectful but inquisitive fashion, like, why do we do it this way? I don't You're just trying to find out more, which I think is great because I don't think sometimes in the security industry we ask enough questions. Why do we continue to do things a certain way? And that's one of the things I've truly admired about you is that you're always very inquisitive, trying to better understand kind of the underpinnings of where we are as an industry, which I think is very, very admirable. So I love it. I
I
love it.
appreciate that, Dave. Thank you. And I think one of the pleasures of working with you is that you're so knowledgeable, but you're so open, which I think there are a fair number of people in this space that I think actually can be like that as well. It is not true in other spaces, right? Like
Yeah.
if you go into entertainment and try to tell someone that you're going to do
Mhm.
things totally differently, 10,
Mhm.
10 out of 10 times you'll get laughed out of the room, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
I think there's space here for that, which is very rare.
I love it. I love it. So where do you see the industry in the next 5 years? You said it's going to be transformative. So Give me a couple, or give our listeners a couple nuggets of where you think that might be.
Where I hope that it goes, because I think this will be great for the people in it and for the people that are recipients of service, is I think we hopefully will see fewer people doing the sort of like dialing it in minimum wage guarding. I think we're going to have elevated tech that takes care of the stuff humans don't like to do and are not good at doing. So like staying up for super long shifts, sitting in a isolated guard booth for 12 hours where there's nothing to see. And that's where we hear customer complaints, by the way, of, oh, someone's asleep, someone's looking up in the guard shack, like da da da. And there's a point in time where it's like, okay, can we give those jobs to tech that does it better and can be on top of it? And then have humans that are much more equipped to do higher level security roles. So maybe those are
Mhm.
roving patrols, maybe they're responding to drones, maybe they're responding to something that got called out by the remote guards, right? Which is the thing that I'm sure your listeners know, but where there's a person actually sitting in front of a ton of cameras, and the cameras are on drones at different locations, and there's AI pinging up stuff that's alarming. And then the human ultimately uses human expertise to determine, like, hey, this is really serious versus this isn't. So I think that's a piece of it. I think that, and we're working on building in this space as well. I think there will be more and more opportunities to get access to high quality security expertise fractionally. I think that piece has really been missing. We work with a lot of clients who need, they don't need 40 hours a week, but gosh, if they had one or two, it would be transformative. And they don't even know how to find the right person for that. So that's a place where we're able to step in. And I'm very curious also to see where AI intersects with security. There are some places where I think it feels very intuitive, probably in terms of like policies and procedures. There are other places where I think a human touch will remain crucial, but it'll be a smarter, higher level, more expensive human touch, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes complete sense to me, and probably, or definitely, I should say, makes sense to a lot of our listeners. Can you expand a little bit on the fractional head of security? I think that's also a very interesting piece, in terms of, yeah, people. There are some organizations out there that certainly don't need a full-time security person, but they could use somebody as an advisor where they can pick up the phone. It's almost like a security version of 911. So can you share a little bit about your program there?
Yeah, by the way, when we were researching product, we had so many people tell us, and this I think is still in the cards at some point, but say, I would pay so much for a private 911, which is interesting. I think it tells you the public perception of what resources are available publicly. But in terms of the service that we offer, it's pretty simple. I think that basically every company in America that's at least mid-sized, and frankly, a lot of the small ones, should have on-demand access to a security expert that they can reach out to. And there are dozens and dozens of situations that a lot of these businesses don't foresee. And they range from someone that can come in once a year and do a security assessment, which is the best practice and everyone should be doing. And often can be, for a small business, can be done in a few hours. It's not something that you need days for. All the way to, and you work with so many of these calls, right? There was a threat. How serious of a threat is it? Is it serious enough for us to close our office, or do we just investigate it? We've had complaints about a certain employee. We think that they might be suicidal. Like, what's our mandate? How do we react to this? Who do we call? All the way to, we're hosting a huge special event. It's unusual for us. Do we need security guards? What kind of guards? How many? Posted where? We're moving offices. This is the security that the landlord has in place. Is it enough? Should we be asking for more? In order for us to be compliant with state laws, either the employee violence prevention proposition that just passed in California or general OSHA guidelines. A lot of heads of HR don't know whether or not they're compliant, or some of them might think they're compliant, but they're not really meeting the letter of the law. So there's a whole list of things which, as I said, often a competent, smart person, I describe it as like, what's the McKinsey or Bain version of security consulting? Like, it's that level. That individual can handle it in hours a week, if that. Sometimes it's less, but the risk of not having it is really huge and very scary.
Again, that's the theme here is making sure that we're staying resilient, because that's usually what is helpful in terms of navigating those situations that you just talked about: workplace violence, threats, crime, just in general. I know that's a big concern here in Los Angeles, and I know that's where you're located as well. And, I think it's very, very interesting, the whole concept around private 911, which is almost what you have with the head of security or the fractional head of
For
security.
companies, yeah.
Yeah. It's very close to it because it allows that person to jump into action and it allows them to do certain things. Obviously, there's going to be some limitations there depending on where the client's located and things like that. But I think that's a very, very interesting piece. What else are you guys working on that would be informational for our listeners?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Dave. So, pivoting a little bit, we have a really cool product launching, and it has to do with challenge coins. So, to back up for those listeners that don't know what they are, maybe everyone here does, but I'll do a quick recap. Challenge coins have been around for about 100 years, and they look kind of like a $50 and generally bear the insignia of the issuer and are given in situations of award, sometimes participation, sometimes recognition. The president of the US has challenge coins that they can give out for exemplary service or bravery. Governors will have them, but also so will chiefs of police and different units and the Air Force and the military and first responders. And a bunch of private security companies have carried on the tradition as well. And they're physical coins, right? And actually, I'm going to rummage around and pull a couple out and see. I should have prepped for this, but let's see. Okay, let's see if this will work with the screen. Okay, so just the ones that were around. This is from Phoenix PD. This is from Jimmy May, who's a retired SEAL who runs a organization that actually helps Navy SEALs transition. This is from our mutual friend Carlos.
Mhm.
Um, this is actually a company that my husband invested in, Red
Mhm.
Six, a bunch more that I think aren't easily accessible, but that's what they look like. As you can tell, they're physical, they're heavy. If I wanted to carry them around with me, it would be tricky to say the least. I have a handful. There are people that Dave has walls and walls of them that he's been awarded or gifted. So we're launching the digital twin for the challenge coin, which will live on the blockchain. And every single coin issued with us, we're going to pair with a digital version. And that'll be something that's super easy to share on LinkedIn, to share online. And most excitingly, it'll carry the memory and the provenance of the coin. Because one of the things that we hear a lot is, especially with folks like Dave that have 100, 200 of them, is like, oh gosh, I know that one's a very special coin. Oh, I actually don't remember how I got it. I don't remember who gave it to me. I wish I did. And with the blockchain, you can preserve who gave you the coin. The giver can actually input why it was given, whether it's relationship builder or an award or something special, and you have the date. And Dave recently treated me to a really intriguing experience with that. He's smiling because he knows what I'm about to talk about, but this is why it relates to challenge coins. So our mutual friend, Tim Pierce, who's a former LAPD detective, has developed this device that lets police officers in training experience the sensation of getting shot and having to fight through it and return fire. And I had the great idea as soon as Dave told me about it and was like, I might incorporate it into some of my training. I was like, this sounds like a wonderful thing for me to try. To his credit, he didn't try to talk me out of it. He was like, of course, you'll really enjoy this. Plot twist, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but it has levels. It goes like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was telling Tim after having failed to reach level 4 because it was just like so uncomfortable. I was like, you should do a coin that kind of corresponds to the level of what the person got to in your device. So that would be another great example. And Dave is smiling because I definitely did not look like I was having fun during my experience.
Well, we are definitely going to have Tim on for an episode so they can
You're
talk about
sure?
his, but as it relates to the digital challenge coins, I think it's a fantastic idea because it really kind of up levels the whole challenge coin space. I know a lot of our listeners definitely know what challenge coins are, and a lot of our listeners probably have, collections of their own and they've been given coins. And to your point, sometimes you get a coin and you're like, I can't remember exactly who gave that to me in some cases. Most of the time, it's pretty apparent, but I love the fact that they're digital. You can trade them. You can mint your own coin, from my understanding, and then you can trade those out. And, I think it becomes a really, really different kind of experience. And you took a very old tradition and you modernized it in a way that I think is super cool. And you got a lot of positive feedback, right?
I have been overwhelmed with it, and it's been really exciting. Everyone that we've shared it with, there's this moment, assuming the person knows what challenge coins are, there's this moment where it's sort of like jaw drop of like, this makes perfect sense. And then the second request is like, when can I launch it? So we're about a month away from launching our first set of coins. One of them will be so William Ray's is a active duty enlisted Navy SEAL, and he'll be launching a coin with us, which is very exciting. Yeah, and Dave and I will definitely get our instances of that coin once it's out, and it'll be released at the same time. So physical coin with the digital twin, both available simultaneously.
I love it. I think that is amazing. Is there any other projects that you're working on that you want to let our listeners know about? And I'll give you an opportunity to share some of your contact info in case some of our folks want to reach out to you for training or consultation or whatever. But is there anything else that Braav is working on that you want everybody to know about?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think I have probably 100 ideas at any given time, but in terms of where we're really spending time, it's the fractional CSO service, which is the mainstay of the company and the core business. And then the coin project, which is really launching next month. But I think I would say stay tuned for our coin activations because we're actively planning different events and activities and ways for us to just invigorate the coin universe with what we're launching.
I love it. So, how can people find you? Tell
Sure.
us how everybody can find you. We're also going to drop it in the comments and the chat, but tell us where everybody can find you, Anna.
Anna at braav.co is probably the best way to reach me. ANNA at braav.co. And then we're braav.co online. I'm also on LinkedIn, not very active on any other platforms. I guess I should be. Dave, are you active on X or you're pretty active on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the two places that I'm most active. I'm on X and I pay attention, but at this point, X is more entertainment more than anything else. I think most people would agree that there's a lot of very interesting information on there. But yeah, Instagram and LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. And for those of you that, are looking to the challenge coin space or need a fractional head of security, reach out to Anna, connect with her on LinkedIn, on socials. Anna, thank you so much for your time today. I super appreciate you stopping by and dropping some knowledge on the show. Is there anything you want to close with today before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I want to ask you a question on the
Sure.
air. What's the other than while you were a police officer, what's the scariest thing that ever happened to you?
What is the scariest thing that ever
Yeah.
happened to me? Well,
Yeah.
let me flip through my Rolodex of many, many things that, I think there's this belief that police officers don't get scared, right? Well, they do because you're in very high pressure and intense situations. And, I think there was a situation where, I was working as a police officer and I had a vehicle try to run me over, and which then turned into a vehicle pursuit of other officers. I happened to be on foot at the time. And I called for assistance, and then that individual had barricaded himself in the car, and they ended up having to use less lethal. They tried to negotiate, he refused. So they ended up using less lethal to extract him out of the vehicle. And it was a multi-agency type of thing because it went through a couple jurisdictions. So yeah,
How close did the car get to you when it, was,
probably within a few feet, maybe.
geez,
Yeah.
wow,
So
that's terrifying.
that's it is, and it's those are the types of situations that stick out in your head for one reason or another. Yeah.
Oof, thank you for sharing that. I feel like we don't talk about your work enough. We talk about so much, but I always want to hear more stories and insights from what that was like.
Happy to share with you offline. Just ask.
You should also share online. I think a lot of people actually, I think one of the things that I've taken away the most out of my career transition is how little people actually know about what this kind of work is like. Not just security work, but specifically like military service, policing work. I don't think it gets the appropriate level of respect in the media. And I live on the west side of LA. I think most people here don't have a lot of interaction with folks that have served or that have worked in the police force. And when I start to share stories, people are shocked. And they're obviously not my stories. They're second or third hand things that I hear from the folks I work with now. And to your point about, of course, you get scared. Like even that, I think people are shocked by. I'll share with people how serious you are about mental illness and treating PTSD, and they're surprised. They assume that that's not something that service members or police officers think about.
Well, I think it's mostly because, well, for two reasons. Number one, some of those stories never make it out there because the larger media outlets aren't reporting that kind of stuff. And number two, in some cases, some of those stories, with whether you're talking about veterans, first responders, security professionals, nobody wants to talk about their worst day, right? Nobody really wants to talk about that stuff. And sometimes it's difficult depending on what happened, what occurred, what played out in that particular circumstance with that individual. So it's really kind of individual whether somebody's willing to talk about those things, number one, and the kind of what happened in the background and those kind of things. And while interesting it is, you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody who really wants to talk about their worst day, right?
But it's
Most
not
people,
even their worst day. I think most people don't even know what an average day is. That's the thing.
well, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of innuendo and speculation about what law enforcement does, what security does, all of these different things without people really knowing the underlying factors. And then unfortunately, people make a lot of judgment based off of a lot of limited information.
Yeah. No, no, that's exactly it. And I think that that's why it's amazing that you're doing this podcast, that you're open about your experiences. I've been lucky enough to sit in on a number of Dave's classes that when Dave teaches, he'll share personally. And I think all of that helps. And I think it really helps to have more civilians who have access and knowledge because it's unfortunate, I think, that those worlds cross so infrequently.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, thank you so much for your time today. Again, thank you to our listeners for listening in to The Resilient Edge. Again, my name's Dave Weiner, and we will see you on our next episode. Have a nice one.